Okay, there you are. So how do I do this? How do I introduce Andy Lipkis? I've decided to do this through some of my personal reflections. I met Andy in 1989 when California Relief just started. I've known Andy since our kids were tots, and now they're all independent, functioning adults. I got into urban forestry because of Andy and Tree People's work on the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. Andy is responsible for my career. He didn't know that, but might we say that by example, he is responsible for me standing here right now. One powerful human being. Andy has blazed the trail that we all have benefited from, and I'm going to just let him take it from here, but please welcome Andy Lipkis.
Hey, thanks. Come on, wake up. Oh, good. I don't need that. It's always my fault, but I'll take that. Thank you. Wow, it's great to be here with you, and I am so moved by hearing Ted's introduction and Gretchen's talk and the challenge. I mean, she could do a full week workshop, and I think we're hungry for it. I just want to echo, well, there's no way to order this. These are really, really difficult, scary, depressing, traumatic times for anybody who cares about people and the environment. So thank you for being people who care about the environment and who are feeling this stuff, and that you're still here and that you're showing up. My tonic for the morning was the words, "I can smell the land." So Gretchen, where are you? Thank you. Her talk, Ted's talk, a little bit of my talk will hopefully give you some more scent of the land. It's hard. We must feel like just crazy, open-hearted, naive people to stay in this game. When the big picture indicators that you hear when you flip on the news says, it's all going downhill. And it is, but it isn't. So I hope that we're going to come out of this with more strength today, and you've certainly given me strength so far. I just need to know what I'm doing here. Great. So I want to acknowledge all the partners in the room. Tree People has been doing stuff for a long time, but we've been doing it in partnership with so many of you, from the state, from CAL FIRE to the city, to so many organizations. Here you see just a sniff of ongoing active partnerships that we have. And Trees partner quietly behind the scenes. Doing this work is really difficult. Sometimes we bruise each other, we kick each other. Sometimes our partnerships open in a fight. And we need to learn all that. So thank you for being in there for that, and for forgiving and for moving on. I just also want to acknowledge Tree People staff is here. There's so many of you. Raise your hands. There's now former Tree People staff in the room. I've seen a few. That's only a little wave. And then there's volunteers all over. So we're all cross-pollinating with each other and helping. I've been asked to talk about taking partnership to a whole new level today, and in a way, it answers one of the questions that Gretchen posed, which is how do we scale the good stuff, and how do we move this from incremental actions to a systemic approach where we reach the turning point. I'm going to underscore that over and over again, but that's where I'm going today. Fast background, Tree People's mission is to inspire, engage, and support the people of LA and Southern California to take personal responsibility and participate in making this a healthy, safe, fun, sustainable, and resilient ecosystem. And to share the process as a model for the world. That is part of LA and California's great opportunity, is we export stuff around the world. So what we do here makes a huge difference, and that's part of how we get to a tipping point. It's nice to have a mission. We've honed our vision. Apologies to staff if you don't exactly recognize this. I took some liberties today. Is to create a life-saving tree canopy over Los Angeles. We are launching and working with some of you in partnership and University of California and public health agencies to define exactly what the characteristics are of a life-saving tree canopy. I'll get into that. There will be a metric, a percentage, but it needs to be equitably distributed across Los Angeles. A goal of moving Los Angeles from normal time around 11% locally sourced water. No need to underscore that from what you heard from Gretchen. Right now, we're close to 0% local sourced water during the drought, all of it being imported. To move to 50% local supply within 10 years. Can we do that? It's our vision. And a definition of healthy soil, which includes soil moisture and the ability to sustain trees, but also together what you see is the key components of an urban forest. So that's our vision. So I say that to help ground where we're going, because maybe some of this will seem really foreign to you. I'm giving Ted's talk because this is all about infrastructure. But our predicament today is that, and by the way, we have said this for the 45 years of the urban forestry movement and the 40-some years of the citizen forestry movement, that trees heal. They heal the land. They heal people. They heal cities. We talk about them creating jobs. We talk about them producing flood protection, saving energy, all of that. But does our work produce that result? The predicament is that we make promises, and we have a hard time showing that we're getting the job done. In part, well, it's kind of chicken and egg. We have a hard time proving that trees can, but with Greg McPherson's work and others, we've been showing they can do all those things, but we're not getting the funding, not only to plant the right trees in the right places, but also maintain them. And more, we're not getting the resources, and perhaps our vision isn't big enough to actually transform the city to a forest. So that's our predicament. The threat, turn on the news. We appear to be in collapse. Look around Los Angeles. I mean, tree disease is invading all over. Our old wisdom is just go back to natives, work with natives, but they're being attacked. Healthy oaks are being wiped out. The things that we rely on, it is damn scary. You can delete the damn if you want. But it is scary, it is frightening. Jared Diamond wrote the book Collapse, which basically said that every civilization throughout history that forgot its trees set in force a series of collapses of the ecosystem, the food system, the water system, and that resulted in ultimately social upheaval combined with environmental degradation, and that civilization was wiped out, gone. But every civilization that remembered its trees saved itself. He points to Japan being one of them. I think we're maybe seeing China on the rise. That was great news. August 8th, 2 days ago, we reached Earth overshoot. That means that was the day 2 days ago where we consumed more than the Earth can produce every year. Each year, we consume more than the Earth can produce in a year through its ecosystem services. It's getting earlier and earlier in the year. That's scary stuff. The threat is also, and perhaps it's the opportunity, is that half the world's population now lives in cities. So the good news is you got people in places where maybe you can organize them better. The challenge is nobody's calling on them. You know, we are promoting the notion that everybody in the world is a consumer. And people are doing a really good job of that, as evidenced by achieving Olympic records every year. But we could actually transform how we view ourselves to being regenerators, because we are. Consuming does not actually give us a lot of health, love, happiness, communication, connection. Consuming is like a drug, feeds us bits but does not sustain us. So could we do that? The threat specifically comes down to climate projections for California, Southern California, and many of the world's cities. Australia, which came before us 15, 20 years ahead, experiencing severe and extreme early onset climate change impacts. Forget about sea level rise. That's way out. I mean, it's coming. It's happening. But what's happening now that we've all been in denial about is hotter hots, wetter wets, drier dries, colder colds, and it's affecting cities, it's costing money, it's destroying infrastructure, and it's killing people. So in Australia in 2000, they entered into their 12-year-long millennium drought, they called it. Not only did they nearly run out of water and have huge consequences in public health and all that, but what came with it, which it hasn't been talked about, is severe and extreme heat. And people have been dying in all the major Australian cities as temperatures rise beyond their normal comfort zone. In one day in 2009 in the city of Melbourne, 200 people died in what's called Black Saturday, just in severe heat. Australian medical public health people said that more Australians die every year in severe heat than all other natural disasters combined. It may surprise you to hear that the US Centers for Disease Control said the exact same thing about the United States in 2014. We just don't hear about it. But you can Google it, Centers for Disease Control, heat, and you'll see the reports. We're there. We're in denial, well-enforced denial, and again, thank you for being here, not being a denier. It's very hard. Well, everybody's walking around with blinders on and being distracted, but we are there. A little scarier, Los Angeles is the first city in the United States to have people die in severe heat in winter. And what it means is, you know, when you take people outside their natural comfort zone for several days of severe heat, and the vulnerable populations are people who don't have air conditioners in hotter parts of the community. You know, LA has a 23% tree canopy cover, but in South LA, East LA, Northeast San Fernando Valley, some of the lowest and most challenged economic areas, they have under 7% tree canopy cover. So that's the threat. The opportunity is huge. I think I could just turn it over to Gretchen, but I'll get specific here. We can think about what we heard glimpses of from China about a massive program, you know, that could turn things around. How do we hit a tipping point from the collapse that's already begun? I believe we can do it. I think you're all committed to it. We talk about the urban forest. The way, and I was an early adopter of the term in the 1970s, and what did it for me was learning about the forest ecosystems that surround Los Angeles and understanding how the ecosystem works and then laying that ecosystem function onto the city like a transparency to make sense of crazy city infrastructure. And what it did, the urban forest as the model for organizing how a city works, how you take water and recycle it and regenerate it, how you work with all your resources and nutrients. That's the urban forest. We're all huddled under the banner of urban forest, but have we been working to actually manifest urban forests or just plant a lot of trees? The opportunity is really to make that change, to change our city from one that is inherently consumptive and destructive. Welcome to the city whose water use causes the largest single use of electricity in the entire state of California. So the largest single use in the sixth largest economy in the world is to pump water into Los Angeles. Only 1/3 of its water, the California aqueduct, and half that water is used to grow lawns. So we are highly consumptive and destructive, even though we're good people. We don't like to think that we're so destructive, but we are. So the opportunity is to change that. And I want to thank NUCFAC for giving a grant in 1974 to let us prove that it was technically, socially, and economically feasible to retrofit cities to function as urban forests, to be able to invest public dollars to make that switch. It's been a long road, and we've been going there. So let me zoom ahead and cover stuff that maybe you've seen. Here's one piece of what a forest does. Growing big trees. This is a large coast live oak in Southern California in Ojai. Here's what it is animated. It's 100 feet in diameter. It has underground roots and soil that it has built over hundreds of years, and it's created a massive sponge that is also habitat for critters. And these critters, by the way, from not the rodents and the big guys, but the microscopic organisms and the bugs, these are exactly what scientists put into sewage treatment plants to treat our poop. You know, they're in machines, but it's these guys doing the work. And this space under the tree is an amazing space. I'm just talking about a few of the functions related to water and waste right now, but we can layer in more. That space under the tree, turns out, calculated by our friend Greg McPherson. Thank you all for fighting for funds for urban forest research budget. So I asked Greg, there was a big tree like that one on that slide being threatened by a developer. A friend was chained to it to prevent it from getting cut down, but the argument was all emotional. I turned to Greg and said, tell me how much water is captured in that space under the tree. Turns out, it's 120,000 gallons in a flash flood. So water falls on a tree. You all know the first 1/10 of an inch is actually held in the canopy, can evaporate or slowed down. Ultimately more water is released to the ground, not just down the trunk, by the way, and water flowing by. So the space 100 feet in diameter captures around 60,000 gallons, but the full space for water flowing by in a 12-inch flash flood is 120,000 gallons. So the critters that are living there aren't just drowning. No, they're working really hard. They take polluted water and runoff that has been there and they clean it. And then that space, actually, because it's so porous, it sends water to the aquifer and recharges it. You know, this is the cornerstone. This is the pillar of our life support system. And how many of our clients and our people know that? How many of us talk about what happens when the tree is removed and what we have to do to replace it? And what do we replace it with? Those of you who know the word starts with a B, say it. 1, 2, 3. What do we replace the tree with when we take it out? Bureaucracy. What that beautiful thing did integrated, and by the way, we didn't even talk about habitat, pollinators, heat, air, cooling. That was all the other pieces of ecosystem function that all happen there and happen together. But on water, we've created bureaucracies for water supply, and they're not bad, by the way. I mean, they were all created over 100 years ago, between 100 and 200 years ago, when the principles of urban management and infrastructure were developed. We didn't know ecosystems, and so we disintegrated the whole into bits. So in LA, we have a Department of Water and Power. Every city's got some form of that. Budget is about $1 billion a year in Los Angeles. Flood control is done by our city and our city sanitation and county flood control agency. The county spends between $350 and $750 million a year to safely get water out of town. We have a stormwater pollution agency that's part of our sanitation department, and their budget ranged between $30 million and $100 million a year to manage and build stormwater infrastructure. We also have too few jobs. The sanitation department also takes all that beautiful biomass grown by half the water we use, and we mow it for them and harvest it, and every week put it in a bin so they can efficiently pick it up and take it to the landfill. Some of it's turned to mulch and compost, but most of it is covering our trash every day. $100 million a year approximately. So what you see here, and then we have air quality agencies, and there's more and more and more. Do they work together? Do they partner? Do they collaborate? Do they have the same language? Do they compare budgets? No. What you see here is a hemorrhage of cash out of our economy, a hemorrhage of jobs, hemorrhage of opportunity, hemorrhage of hope. This is the mechanism of collapse. If we're urban foresters, what we need to be doing is facilitating a partnership that makes this happen. Bring them together so we start using the mechanisms of forest management instead, which gives us new water, reduces solid waste, basically starts to reverse the game that is really plaguing us, and right at the core creates jobs. Thank you. That's my warning. So that's what we see as possible, what we thought was possible. We did the economics due to the NUCFAC grant. I'm going to zoom through this to show that it was actually feasible, and we were able to get agencies to actually come together and co-fund demonstration projects, which we built on streets and parks and schools and homes for the last 25 years, and they work. The challenge is they're all still sitting in their silos. And it's only when somebody comes together with an opportunity way late in the game, once an RFP is out that says, come join us, that we try to get them together and get them to co-fund, and some good projects are built. I mean, here, I wanted you to visualize, if you haven't, the transforming of a parkway to a treatment wetland stream. And the only thing missing from this is the tree, which will be in here, is in some of the places we've done. This is a block in Sun Valley, done with the Council for Watershed Health and Tree People, and the city of Los Angeles. So water flows in through this lovely creek system, which has, the water is bioremediated, infiltrated into the ground. Adding a tree to that to have tremendous canopy, you start to get to the recipe of resilience and sustainability in Los Angeles, producing enough shade to really protect people. Tree People's cistern, this is the same diameter of that oak tree, nearly 100 feet in diameter. Instead of 5 feet deep, it's 10 feet deep, and its capacity is 216,000 gallons. One full cistern gives us a year off the grid, but in terms of resilience, just a few inches of rainfall, 4 inches in fact, provides enough water for 250 initial attack helicopters for the helispot across the street from us in a brush fire. We know in LA when big fires happen, the water system fails. Resilience. Moving forward to models and demonstrations, what the city of Melbourne did in an emergency deep research response to how do they save their people, they had the same tree canopy cover as LA, and they pushed for it to go to from 22% to 40%. And they are implementing. This is the core central downtown street, Swanson Street, if you've been there. They planted these sycamores quickly and have been achieving that. They've been changing their water systems, doing massive rainwater harvesting, tapping sewer lines, and putting micro treatment plants under parking lots in order to have water available to sustain a tree canopy. In fact, I haven't said this before, they reorganized their government system so their landscape and urban forest department is in charge of climate adaptation and stormwater. It's pretty incredible. They've done it. By the way, it's sitting in meetings with them over the last 10 years when they're talking and planning and implementing climate change. As passionate as I am about it, the denial machine that's been inserted bug in our heads is so profound that as much as I know, I felt like I was sinning like somehow I was sneaking off and having an affair on the side, some illicit affair, being with these scientists and planners and managers who were doing this great work because I was going to re-enter our culture. Anyhow, it's there, it's within reach. So I'm going to skip this. We get a lot of rain. Whoops, move back. So how do we scale this up? Incremental's been great, but it's not enough. Sustainable infrastructure is not possible to achieve with single-purpose infrastructure. It's not. They can never, if they're only doing water supply, they can't justify doing rainwater harvesting and all that stuff. It's only when we bring agencies together that it makes sense. So we have to move from this part-time partnership thing into a full-time collaboration. And now my talk begins, but I'm going to zoom through it so you can ask questions of how we get there. This is why we created the multi-agency collaborative, a partnership with LA Department of Water and Power, LA City Sanitation, and the Flood Control District. And some of the tree people staff in this room from our policy department, Deborah especially, have been key leaders in this. We actually have partnerships with the agencies, and we ask them to come and sit down together and talk to each other and, not sometimes be talking about each other behind their backs. And it's going to stop now. And they agreed to do that. And we had to talk to them in pairs and individuals and hear what their problems were, and they actually gave us a small contract to work with them and support them. By the way, Tree People has had a MOU, a contract with our Department of Water and Power for 7 years. They haven't paid us a penny. They weren't supposed to. We didn't ask for it. It gave us the opportunity to be there and engage with their board and their general manager and senior staff to help them move towards sustainability. Because we didn't take money, it gave us the ability to talk to the public, the press, city council. When you've got a contract, you can't do that necessarily. And so that helped give some leverage. Ultimately, this is one of the first times some of the chiefs, not all of them, gathered. Right in the middle is the person with the white hair and white suit is Gina McCarthy, the head of the EPA, who heard about the collaborative work that was coming and said, I want to have lunch with these people. And so what we have here is the deputy mayor of the city of Los Angeles in the back, the head of the Department of Water and Power, head of sanitation, our chief sustainability officer, Nancy, the head of flood control and county public works, and Jared Blumenfeld, next to Deborah, having lunch. But it was the first time they were recognized from the outside. It's been a very quiet thing so they can actually work, talk, and figure things out. From there, we actually did an 18-month kind of feasibility study, exploration stage, asking them, is it worthy to move forward, to commit some time and resources to collaborating, going deeper? And they said yes. It took another 18 months to get a contract, but they did. And then they committed to exploring how to create tools, collaborative governance tools that will allow them to co-invest, co-spend, co-plan, and build and maintain together to create the kinds of resources. Oh, here, maybe, I thought I put this somewhere. Yes, to do all that together far enough in advance where you can actually build an infrastructure system that is resilient. And that's what they've been doing, and that's what we've been doing. This recent phase 2 has been a year long. And the job was to explore governance systems and do something together. I'm really pleased to say that last October 1st was the first time the 3 chiefs of those agencies had ever been in the same room together. And it's not their fault. They're all at war with regulators, with environmentalists, with unions. Their hands are way too full, and there's no protocol for coming together. And we do have the mayor pulling them together and having, the larger group of managers talking. And, but they got to sit down together quietly. And each of them brought 20 of their top people for a day of collaboration and design. And what we did in that one-day-long charrette was essentially extract their ideas and their DNA to create a hybrid system, a hybrid model that could retrofit homes, neighborhoods, streets. We focused first on how to, as Greg had said, how to change every home, every person into a manager of water. And that was October 1st. On November 4th, 1 month and 4 days later, we unveiled the first completed demonstration project of 6. This is, meet Cassie. She's a homeowner in the San Fernando Valley. She received, I think that's an 1,100-gallon cistern. Her yard was retrofitted to function forest-like, taking out the water-thirsty landscape, putting in water-efficient plants, mulch, rainwater harvesting facilities, including a swale and a rain garden in her house. We invited a few people to come, and they showed up. The mayor, the county supervisor, the heads of all the agencies. Key thing is the mayor is holding on his iPad what every homeowner has on their phone or their computer, which is a picture and data of what's happening in their own cistern. They can control it from their phone, send the water to their landscape, or send the water to the aquifer, or in some cases send it to the street for a first flush, or send it to the treatment plant for recycling. The point is, the hybrid system, and this is where we are starting to biomimic the urban forest. We use natural systems as much as we can, but we can't always have green on its own do enough of the reparation of the natural cycles we destroyed. But biomimicking how a forest works as the model can get us there. So in this case, the cloud-controlled cisterns, the pad that the mayor has shows all of them, the network of all the cisterns that are online. Now there are 6 complete, but imagine 10,000, which may just be the next phase, or 100,000, or imagine somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5 million homes in the county. All of them being able, where appropriate, capture water, adding to supply. It's a piece. The same thing has to happen in neighborhoods, schools, streets, parks, and then that builds up to incredible power. We'll say that the Department of Water and Power actually, through Deb's guidance, on that MOU we had, entered into a major study, their first ever in their over 100-year history, of a stormwater capture master plan to figure out how their engineers and some of the world's best engineers figure out how much water falls on Los Angeles. Remember I said today rainwater represents 11% in a normal year of our water supply. I'd been saying for a while there was a big number. They came out with up to 45% of LA's water falls in rain that is thrown away. And now they're set and planning to capture it. So this enables that to happen. By the way, the press that came to this, there were nearly 50 reporters and stories carried around the world about the breakthrough. It's very cool. They're getting some good, the city's getting some good credit and recognition, as are the agencies. By the way, this is a picture of cisterns developed and deployed in Australia during their drought in Melbourne. 30% of the homes in that city of 4 million people, it's the same size as LA, now have tanks in their yards. Some of the cities, as many as 50% of the homes. With incentive funding from government, people were able to make changes quickly. I think they're doing the same thing with trees. We can scale this stuff, creating jobs, all sorts of wonderful things. The steps and components of getting there, we did the plan. EWIMPs, Enhanced Watershed Management Plans. That comes from the vision of an urban forest. In that 25 years of showing it was technically, economically, socially feasible, water quality management in LA went from fixing it with machines to shifting it to a watershed basis. And the most recent MS4 permit, the municipal stormwater permit, requires every city to have a watershed plan for treating the water. Well, the plans have been done for all 88 cities and watersheds across Los Angeles. The implementation cost, $23 billion. It's a big chunk of money, but it has to be spent. The Supreme Court even said it has to be spent. Navigant, this huge consulting firm, audited our Department of Water and Power and its water sustainability, and it actually found the reports that we had written on the first phase of the collaboration and quoted them throughout their audit and said, this is the future, this is where water needs to go. They took a leap, though, that we did not recommend, and I just want to underscore this for you, because I'm setting up some of your questions. They said, do the homeland security of water, put everybody into one agency, that'll fix it. We don't think that's the case. Silos are a challenge, but they're also where the skilled people and the infrastructure is. What we have to do is put in that collaborative layer on top, which we have. Suddenly, we have another opportunity and challenge on our hands. The City of Los Angeles settled a lawsuit from the disabilities community. It was an ADA lawsuit. $1.3 billion to replace all the sidewalks and in Los Angeles so people have access. It's a huge burden. It's a huge challenge. It's a fantastically huge opportunity if you think about what we can do to create safety and health. Because you don't have, as we heard earlier, you don't have access if you're in the sun and burning yourself. And so we need to create that healthy tree canopy. Along with hotter hots, wetter wets, drier dries, that wetter wets, Los Angeles is projected to have slightly more rain with the changing climate, but in far fewer storms, meaning regular flooding. So our infrastructure, once again, is undersized for what's coming. The opportunity with that, there will be another spend. So how do we get in front of all of this? We need emergency road repair, pipe repair. There's all kinds of ways to move this forward. And the key is to get people together, and we know how to do this. Los Angeles and Southern California was the place that created the emergency command system, integrated command systems, which means getting all the best minds in the room from different agencies to solve. First, it was built for firefighting, but it was so good at saving lives in disasters that FEMA made it happen in every city across the country, and it spread around the world. We know how to do that during disasters. We're in denial about disasters. We need to be doing this to make the urban forest happen. So I want to leave you with that vision and a short thought, and then open it to questions, and I'll check on my time. We have time. This is good. I set a really short end time for myself, so it doesn't usually happen. In 1980, the Club of Rome, a think tank in the US and Europe, issued the Global 2000 report. It was a look at what was happening with ecosystems, economies worldwide. And it said by the year, this was 1980, but it said by the year 2000, if we continued on the trends that they were seeing, that there would be a massive loss of species, habitat, global dislocation, all kinds of stuff. And it got labeled by the beginning of the denial industry as the doomsday report, to make it go away, make us all go, could never be that bad. Well, guess what? No, sorry. I read that in 1980. It was just one more thing of bad news. But the last line in it was, without global cooperation and action, we're doomed to this fate. And our work, all of our work, is about creating local cooperation and action to solve problems. I thought, wow, we need to show this to the world. And when LA got selected to be the host city for the 1984 Olympics, we said, this is our opportunity to show the world what people can do when they cooperate. And we challenged the people of LA to plant 1 million trees. And we spent 4 years doing crazy things, getting people to plant. We didn't create a great urban forest. We made lots of mistakes, but we did succeed in getting the people to step in and do it. And 4 days before the Olympics, we celebrated the planting of the 1 millionth tree. Yesterday, our mayor was in Brazil making the case for LA to be the Olympic city in 2024 in eight years. If any of you watched the opening of the Games for the first time in the Olympics history, they acknowledged and put front and center climate change. They gave every athlete a tree, every athlete planted a seed. The opportunity, and I know the mayor is committed to this, is to have, if LA gets the Olympics, it's most of California that's going to be involved. It goes way beyond the city. To have, in that same spirit of what we did in 1980 for 84, to actually show the world that we can transform the city by changing our infrastructure, by having people become the participants and the managers of the water, the ecosystem, and the urban forest, and trigger the tipping point for the world to flip and to move us out of collapse and into resilience. Thank you. Sorry, I've never said that before, but I hope that maybe together we can all smell the land. Are there questions about how we did it? How much time do we have?
We'll just make some time and then make it up a little later. So please ask your questions. We don't get Andy in these meetings very often, so ask your questions.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Oscar Sanchez, and I'm a certified arborist, and I also am a cyclist. I see a
And a former Tree
problem
People staff member.
with big parking lots everywhere, and I think if we have more cycling, it could create a big impact in reducing the amount of our carbon footprint. And I don't know if there's the city is implementing or installing some more bike lanes for cyclists like myself to feel safer and to attract other cyclists. Is Tree People, besides like planting trees and educating people, working toward like implementing more cycling, more biking lanes?
We're not opposed, but I think collectively we're all part of a movement for LA becoming sustainable and resilient. The city has it in its plan, and I was blown away to be, unfortunately, driving here this morning and seeing the first separated by barriers bicycle lane right here on Los Angeles Street. That's an innovation, and that's huge, because that's how they did it in the Netherlands and in other places in Europe, by making it safe for bikers. So, when people start to engage, our citizen foresters, our volunteers, they become community leaders, and they take on all kinds of issues. So hopefully, tree planting is one of the steps that gets people active, and they grow into very powerful community organizers that can take on that and many other causes. More questions? Yeah.
Hi, Lori Bradling from Tree San Diego, and we're, as you may know, relatively new, and Tree People is one of our role models, so thank you for that inspiration. My question to you is, in terms of thinking about this holistically, it has occurred to me recently that there's three phases to a tree. One is the new tree to be planted, right tree, right place. The second is to maintain the tree through its full lifespan. And the third is inevitably the tree dies for various reasons. The tree dying piece, I really have not heard in various meetings and so forth that I've gone to, much emphasis, if any, on that. And yet we have come across challenges with respect to that. There's sort of challenges and opportunities. Challenges, people don't want to plant trees because they know they'll die, and particularly if they're on their own land, the expense of dealing with it. But there are opportunities in terms of if you did the right things with the biomass, like creating mulch or creating lumber or whatever, then there are opportunities to repurpose and reuse that biomass. But the whole thing about what you do with the dead trees feeds into probably right up there with water is fire. And people in urban areas, especially in Southern California, but throughout the state, are very, very susceptible to having major fires. And that, again, is only going up, the risk. So I don't know what you've thought about, or other groups, about using the fire danger as a hook. As I said, it's both a reason people don't want to do trees, but also a potential wedge for urban foresters to get in there and say, we can help you deal with the whole life cycle of the tree. So you can have a healthy forest, but if you keep just saying do more trees and don't deal with that third piece, it's a problem.
Well, I think you answered your statement and your question, which is yes. When we talk about managing the city as a forest ecosystem, it recognizes the flow of energy and life. We don't deal very well with death, but, and people who've lost a dog or, don't want to get a dog because they don't want to lose one again. But, ultimately we get dogs, we get married, we have kids, people die, our trees die. Understanding a forest ecosystem means valuing that for everything it does in all its life phases and appropriately funding it. So it's a carbon sink. It's a great source of fiber and fuel. Recycling it in the right ways is either adding mulch and water holding capacity, water treatment capacity, jobs. Los Angeles used to be the world's leading city for manufacturing of toys. Imagine, and we, 30 years ago, tree people working with CAL FIRE did a demonstration of mini mills of what you do with dead trees, that you can mill them on site and build picnic benches or send them to high school wood shops where kids can learn. We used to have wood shops in high school where we all got some skills, what we could do with our hands and trade skills, and it was amazing. But they closed them down because no one could afford the wood. They couldn't afford to sustain the programs. There's ways when you think of whole system to actually use this stuff. So I'll leave it at that. I want to ask if any of you have questions about your groups. Do you have a role in playing? Tree People is an organization that's now roughly $5 million budget with 60 staff. So we have a policy division, we have an urban forestry division, we have an education division, and a public education division. So we're sort of built for that. Not everybody needs to do that, but and I know, Nancy, you were inspired by the research of the Trees Project way back, and it's hard to get a board to and donors to appreciate some of the weird stuff you do, like this research and like the policy stuff. But if we can be of assistance, let us know. But if you have questions about roles you can play in making it happen, maybe part of our movement needs to be, I know yesterday we're doing workshops on advocacy and policy, and maybe we need to be learning more and cross-pollinating more from even our successes and failures in this work. I didn't say that, stay with the mic. Phase 3, and we're finishing up phase 2. I'm now seeing all the script that I didn't write down, but part of the research in the second phase of the multi-agency collaborative is we have one of the world's larger engineering agencies as our partner. It's Tetra Tech, and they are actually doing the scaling analysis and all the data and management on what it means to go from the 6 homes to county-wide, what the costs are, how much water can be captured. And all of that then fits into the potential of the region's planned expenditures when you add up stormwater plans, the EWIMPs, plus water supply, plus flood protection, plus sidewalk repair. Countywide, that translates to an investment of over $30 billion in the next 30 years. We should be driving that. That's the reality. That's money, that's our money on the table. And if we can get out in front, that money is going to be spent anyhow, but if it's spent in typical infrastructure, it'll only be Band-Aids. It won't get us to resilience. If we step up and help facilitate as we are and have the public understand and demand it, our visions can happen. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Andy, thank you. I'd like to add to Nancy's story that your speaking in past years inspired my interest in trees, and I thank you for that. In the San Joaquin Valley, we know the deniers up close, the agriculture community, which continues to have enormous impact and largely exempted itself from water regulation in this last time around. We would appreciate your help in addressing integrated collaborative effort in the San Joaquin Valley. I'm happy to report that our board has transitioned significantly in the last 4 years, where it's comfortable with an education and policy advocacy role. But frankly, we still don't have sophisticated community forest management in our communities and in our jurisdictions. And we need to do a more credible job there before we can get into the larger scale reforestation of the Sierra and the water resource management in the valley. But I have a feeling that since those are interconnected, any help you could give us with that effort would be appreciated. And I do think after 30 years, Tree Fresno could be a viable partner for you.
Great. Well, thank you for the invite, and let's talk. And you underscored issues I think that everyone's dealing with. The lack of environmental literacy that sees trees mostly as decorations, and in most city plans, it's there as an element of street amenity, not infrastructure function. And one of our breakthroughs when we first formed an urban forest council in city of LA was the first chair, Larry, and I spent a few years getting the urban forest added as a 13th element in the city's general plan of infrastructure. People still don't get it, and it somehow got removed without us knowing it. But we got it in there so we could all hold them accountable for city spend and not what it was maintaining and not. But we have a long way to go, but it can happen more quickly with people seeing the undeniable changes. And we're offering a pathway that doesn't require denial. And the other gift to all of us is the requirement to work with disabled communities that's in the bulk of the tens of millions of dollars that are available to all of us in our cities with the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. We have got to truly build our partnerships and enable the people who are most affected by the heat, by environmental injustice, when we actually have solutions. And because they're on the front lines of the pain, and if we're doing healing work, that is the place to be. We have a lot of learning to do of how to do that as a community, how to translate and really move, but it's happening. Yeah.
Can I ask one other question? It seems to me you've also written a report on this work that you're doing with the multi-agency collaborative, yes?
Yes, thank you. And I didn't put it in the slide, but we'll give you. So if you go to Tree People's website, there's a publications section, and there we are very transparent on all of our work, and there are reports on it. Phase 1 of the multi-agency collaborative. Another one is on the power of schools, working to actually have schools open up to be able to take water in and receive the billions of dollars to have green, safe campuses that teach kids. And there's a lot more. Deb, do you want to? Yeah. Yeah. So we'll be putting up the phase 2 report, but there's even the book that we produced from the first charrette from the Trees Project research that we did to show it was technically, socially, economically viable. The cost-benefit analysis, I believe, is online. The book called Second Nature, which is actually was one of the early green infrastructure design manuals. It's all there on the website. Yes, and we've put up a report on research from Australia on the models and the viability that they've created in adapting their cities. Some of the things I talked about, like Melbourne. So that's all within reach. Yeah.
And then the other follow-on question was, you've talked, I think, about how long it's taken to get the different groups or departments within LA to work together. But while you've been doing this, has there been some spreading out of this to other jurisdictions in the LA region?
Well, and even across the state, that bureaucracy model in a slightly less animated state still really inspired a young assemblywoman, Fran Pavley, when she was a junior assembly person in the California Assembly, and she went, wow, you know, I could do something about this. And she wrote a simple law that nobody quite noticed enough to try to stop it, and it required the state, it just said the state of California will not spend money on water projects unless they come through an integrated regional water management process. That law created what we now know as the IRWIMS. It needs to be adjusted to be more effective, but it basically requires integrated planning, and it's happening in every region across the state because you cannot get state money with it. It hasn't triggered the full-time collaboration that we anticipated. We need to get there. Other pieces that got close were these. We were hoping to see an integration board happen at the state level in the governor's office, and it got named the Strategic Growth Council. That was how the Republicans signed off on what was going to be a sustainability function council. And they were given a lot of money, but they're giving it out as grants. And the vision that we had working with Senator Steinberg is that they would actually access the billions of dollars that the agencies have and do that integration and give the money out. And instead, they've given out grants, which some of us have gotten, and they've done a lot of good. But we need to move it to that very different paradigm. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, let's give a big round of applause to Andy.
Thank you.
And just remember, we're on break now for 15 minutes, and we're going to ask Gretchen and Chuck to come to this table toward the drinks where they can sign books. If you need to. Oh, never mind. They're going to come to the registration table to sign books. There was a change in plan.